Hi, my name is Brit. I work for the YWCA Alternatives to Domestic Violence program. I'm currently an associate therapist, but in the 5 years that I've worked here, I've had a few different hats. Associate therapist is the one that I wear now, but I was an intern and then a counseling advocate for a while, so I've worked with a lot of people here. And one of the things that I tell people all the time, what I love about my job, is that I get to work at a place that aligns with my values. So one thing that really drew me to the YWCA was our motto of eliminating racism and empowering women. And what I love about that is that it sort of acknowledges the fact that those two things go together and that those things go hand in hand and that we can't address one without addressing the other. There is a term for this. It's called intersectionality. Intersectionality is a term that was coined by a social researcher named Kimberly Crenshaw. She wrote about it initially in a paper in 1989, and she's done a lot of work on it since then. Kimberly Crenshaw is a pretty incredible woman. If you have a chance, I'd suggest watching. There's a great TED Talk where she talks about the intersectionality of racial issues and feminism that I really love showing to people. But she's just done a lot of really great work over the years, and what I think intersectionality means for us in the domestic violence field is, if you think of intersections like intersections in traffic, where if you're trying to get somewhere, if you're looking for directions, a lot of times you need to know what roads intersect with other roads so that you know how to get where you're going. And for me, providing social services should look the same. We should know where certain roads intersect with other roads so that we can provide the right kind of care for people and a better understanding, more empathy, more meaningful access, I think, can be done through that. We talk about providing wraparound services for our survivors. That's something that's really important to us here, and we really highly promote the idea of believing survivors. And for me, that means that if someone is telling me that racism is a part of their experience in life, and if racism has been part of their domestic violence experience, then I need to believe that person and that I need to act accordingly. And if you're wondering what that looks like, there's a lot of examples of this. Over the years, like I said, I've worked with a lot of people, and my clients that are people of color have absolutely faced more barriers and different barriers than my clients that were white. My clients that are white obviously have their own barriers, and it doesn't mean that they don't have any struggles at all, right? They're different, and people of color, I've noticed, overall tend to deal with more barriers, different barriers, whether that's because they're outright experiencing racism from their abusers. That's something that I've seen and had to talk to a lot of my survivors about when I look at folks that are using government systems and the way that they are treated, the way that my clients that are people of color are treated versus the way that my white clients are treated. There's been some notable differences. I've experienced my clients having people be very rude to them, having people make it hard for them to receive whatever services they're receiving. My clients that have had to seek out translation services, my clients that have had to deal with stereotypes and stigma from the people that they're trying to get help from. I've seen it over and over again. And I think that that's a really important thing to acknowledge when working with domestic violence survivors, because those are the sorts of things that we can't tease apart all the time. You can't necessarily separate a person's experience of racism from their experience of domestic violence. And I think that that's, if we're going to meet people where they're at, and if we're going to truly try to empower them, and we do try to do an empowerment model here, and I think that if we're going to try to do that, some folks who maybe have more privileges, or some folks that maybe face less kinds of oppression, they might have an easier time reaching that point of empowerment. But someone who experiences more oppression, someone who has been marginalized in ways that are different or more so than their counterparts, are definitely going to need a bit more help and need a bit more support, and we're going to need to make that a part of our safety planning and a part of our treatment planning and a part of our approaches with someone, because I don't think that we can fully say that we're trying to empower them without doing that. One of my favorite quotes is a quote from Audre Lorde, and it says, "There is no such thing as a single issue struggle because we do not live single issue lives." And in my experience, if anything has been true about working in the DV field, it's that. It's the fact that there is no such thing as a single issue. There are always layers, and to me, I think that that's a really important part of our mission and a really important part of how we can truly be there for our community and empower our folks in the best way possible.